One with God, the Lord Most High. Your hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you, our Christ. What a beautiful name it is. What a beautiful name it is. You sing. You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love was greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. How sweet is your name. How good you are. We love to sing of your name, Lord. Love to sing of who you are. Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the ghost of sin and grave. The heavens are roaring, the praise of your glory. For you are raised to life again. You have no rival, you have no equal, now and forever.
Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to everyone, not just here, but also at home. And as I've mentioned before, these Living Faith sessions, these sessions are not just for people of faith, they're for people of any faith or no faith, or indeed one that is fragile. Now, at our last session, about a month ago, the message, and a strong message it was one of hope and looking forward to the future. And one of the speakers was my good friend and our good friend, Stephanie Knight. And Stephanie spoke of how our Lord had touched her life and helped her through her darkest days when she lost her husband, one of my closest friends, Adrian, who unexpectedly took his life, and also how she battled with cancer. Now, what's happened since then? Well, we've been on holiday, but I'm sure you'll agree this is not the time and the place to actually speak about that. But more importantly, there was one thing that happened on holiday recently when we came back from France, or when we were in France, I should say, and that was Stephanie's daughter, one of her daughters, Candice, got married to a Frenchman out there. And Xavier knew Adrian, and unexpectedly, Xavier turned up in Adrian's shoes. That was an incredibly touching and moving moment and gesture. And in a way, it kind of adds a lot of poignancy to that expression, to walk in someone's shoes. But what about today? What's the theme or the message of today? Well, the message of today is around two things. One, the power of love, kind of building on the wedding, and also the power of reflection. And we're going to hear the voices of three young women, all connected in some way to St David's Catholic Sixth Form College. And the first voice that we're going to hear from is in fact Stephanie's daughter, who got married in France, Candice. And just a wee bit of background, Candice was not only a former student of St David's College, but Candice has worked in the charity sector all of her young life to date, and she's currently the head of major donors and trusts at the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, which sadly is very topical at this particular moment. But this is what Candice asked her younger sister to read out at the wedding. And I'm just going to share this powerful testimony of love with you, with her approval. It's called The Little Yellow Leaf. And then, high up on an icy branch, a scarlet flash. One more leaf holding tight. "You're here," called the little yellow leaf. "I am," said the little scarlet leaf. "Like me," said the little yellow leaf. Neither spoke. Finally, "Will you?" asked the little scarlet leaf. "I will," said the little yellow leaf. And 1, 2, 3, they let go and soared. I mentioned that Candice is one of three powerful voices that we're going to hear today, and I'd like to briefly introduce our second voice. It's a young lady called Rebecca Tong. Becky is currently doing her GCSEs at Corpus Christi, so we're really appreciative of the fact that she's given time to this. And Becky is going to be moving on to St David's College in the autumn of this year. That's enough from me. I think Becky's more than capable of introducing herself and what will follow. In many ways, we're going from Broadway to St Bridget's. Over to you, Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky Tonge and I'm 16 years old. I started rehearsals for a musical called Godspell in January 2022 and performed it in April. It is based on the 1973 movie starring Victor Garber, which I think some of you may know. But if you don't, it's based on the story of Jesus' life from his baptism by John the Baptist to his resurrection on Easter Sunday. It portrays the point of views of the apostles and how they learnt from their teacher. As a Catholic, I knew most of the parables from a very young age, but as a child, the parables felt the same as nursery rhymes to me and didn't have much of an impact. Performing in Godspell changed this because being part of the parables brought it to life and gave it a lot of meaning. Just like a child understands the nativity story more than any other story because they perform it every year. Godspell has got to be the most physically challenging show I've ever done because you have to be on stage for the whole time. But in the same way, it is the best show I've ever done. I went from crying on stage in a really sad song to having to play a sheep in the next scene. It's crazy, but it expanded my knowledge in faith. A wise man once told me, a prayer is a great way to speak to God, but a song is worth 7 prayers. That statement has stuck with me since it has been said, and every time I sing a hymn in church, it reminds me of that day. My favourite line in Godspell has to be, if a man sues you for your shirt, give him your coat as well. And if a man in authority asks you to go 1 mile with him, go with him too. I think that this is the teaching that I strive to follow the most in my life, because if you're already doing a job for somebody else, what's the harm in doing more? It's self-rewarding being kind to others. While writing this speech, my mum phoned me and said, Becky, can you clear your revision off the table? I've got food. And I'd just written these 2 quotes. So I thought, I'm already clearing the table. If a man sues you for your shirt, give him your coat as well. So clear the table as well. Lay the table. I didn't tell my mum because I didn't do it for praise. I did it because it saves her a minute out of her day. And I also know that I'm following Jesus' teachings. Also, I try to follow another quote. Do not make a show of your religion before man. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew chapter 6, verses 3 to 4. This year on Good Friday, I sat in church, as I have done every year since birth. I was listening to my priest talking, and I felt so emotional to the point of tears. I was sat listening to a story I'd heard my whole life, and I was feeling almost grief over it, which I've never truly felt. I realise now that this emotion was formed by being in Godspell. Being so close and so involved with the story in the show has strengthened my faith. When Maundy Thursday came in the story, I felt so overwhelmed with all this grief because I really felt as though Jesus was being taken away again and again and again. I couldn't get through the show without crying, and everyone who watched came up to me after and was like, "Wow, Becky, you're such a good actor crying." No, that's just really my strong faith. Godspell was my way of feeling and understanding the story, and that was the emotion I felt at church on Good Friday. My song in Godspell was Day by Day. It was the first song in the show, sung by one of the disciples. Each apostle's songs shows how they have different understandings and connections with Jesus. For example, one is thanking Jesus and one is trying to get the other people to learn all of the parables. The lyrics in my song are the person striving to follow Jesus' teachings to the best of her ability, and she wants to get closer to him, and that's why I felt it touch my heart. I will be singing for you now, so here is Day by Day from the musical Godspell.
Wow. If you didn't get a tingly feeling listening to that, then there's something wrong with you, I think, basically. But what a powerful reflection. Not just the song, but what Becky spoke about beforehand, from one so young. And that says a lot to all of us, doesn't it? You know, in terms of the scriptures, you know, what we might take for granted, what we might have heard 1,000 times before. But look at what Becky experienced and actually the inspiration that she drew from that. And perhaps we can take a piece of that from Becky and learn from her too. That's our second of 3 voices. There's a theme of 3 if you've actually sort of tumbled it today. It might have something to do with Pentecost as well, but I'll leave that to Father with Mass a little bit later. Our third voice is another person connected with St David's College, and this particular student, she's in her final year, Freya Whiteley, and unfortunately Freya can't be with us today, but she's kindly put pen to paper and shared with me and us her reflection. So I'll try and be Freya for the moment. My name is Freya Whiteley, and I'm currently completing my final year in St David's Catholic College. I haven't always lived in Cardiff. My family was previously located in Gorsinon, Swansea. I had attended a church called Penarail Community Church for the vast majority of my life, in which my dad was the pastor. The church had always been very small, about 30 members, and it was very open to the community by providing children's clubs, cafe mornings, and Sunday schools, alongside the usual Sunday meetings. Because of my dad's status in the church, I always felt a pressure growing up to be perfect. As a result, I would help out in the children's club every week, often helped out in cafe mornings when I wasn't at school, and never missed a single Sunday service. I turned into quite an arrogant person, like a Pharisee, lifting myself up on a pedestal and squashing others down because I believed myself to be better than everyone else. These are Freya's words. At this time, I was also claiming to be a Christian, and yet I was not bearing any of the fruits that would indicate that I was so. And this went on from when I was 8 to the age of 15. The summer of 2019 was a truly hard time for my family. My church in Swansea had slowly diminished in numbers until there were only a few left, and the church was no longer to be able to support a pastor. My dad then received an offer to be the pastor in a church in Gabalfa, Cardiff, Emmanuel Baptist Church, which he accepted, and we were told that he would be moving away from Swansea. This really hit our family hard, because we had made such deep roots in our community. All of our friends and family were in Swansea, and Cardiff just seemed so foreign to us. That summer I had planned to attend a Christian camp in North Wales, and I did attend, but I was filled with an anger and a hatred for my situation. Why is this happening to us? What had I done to deserve this? We had worked so hard in Swansea, and it felt now as if it had been for nothing. I didn't understand God's plan. How many have said that before? And in this situation, and I was angry with him. My dad was the chaplain of the camp, and he delivered a number of short sermons to children and young adults from the ages of 12 to 17 throughout the week. He spoke about how, when we were Christians, we should have a longing for Christ and we should have a desire to learn more about him. At this time, I realised that I had never really had this longing he was speaking about, and it really changed me to examine my heart. And that's talking to us about something about connection and relationship, not just being present at church or present or saying ritual prayers. I now know that God had opened my ears and my heart to hear and receive Christ on this camp, and I came to the realization of how much a sinner I was and how I could not get to heaven through my own actions, and that my being perfect would never be enough. I also realised, however, that Christ was enough. I only needed to put my trust in him, and his sacrifice on the cross would be enough. Moving to Cardiff at the end of that summer was still extremely hard. But when I look back now, and I can see that God had a plan for me. The church we were moving to Cardiff for welcomed us, and I've met so many wonderful people, both Christian and non-Christian, as a result. I can see through the almost 3 years since we've moved that God has given me a more humble heart and passion to read his Bible. Although at times I slip back into the old habits, don't we all, of arrogance and apathy, I can be confident in the knowledge that when I turn back to God, he is not unforgiving, but welcomes me back with open arms. And I've often thought when we talk about opening arms, it reminds me personally of the cross. Not that Jesus has died for us, but he's welcoming us. And this is really what Freya is conveying through her own words. When I think about the willingness in which God forgives, I can't help but feel amazed because I've done nothing to deserve it. Not a single action made on my behalf would deem me even slightly worthy of God's love, and yet I am loved by him. I am now being baptised on the 3rd of July this year, and I'm hoping to get more involved in the children's work in the church. Not because I want to maintain this illusion of a perfect persona that I had at a younger age, but because I genuinely want to share the good news of what God has done in my life and with those that might not have had the opportunity to hear it. Now, just stopping for a few moments and thinking about what Freya has said, something has reminded me personally of something I heard when I was on holiday. Again, I apologise for mentioning our holiday again. And that was somebody who had been saved by the RNLI, the lifeboat volunteers. And this person was saved because they remembered a particular exercise or particular frame of mind that they had to be in when they were caught in a riptide. And aren't there many riptides in life that pull us out far from where we want to be? And this action that saved this particular person's life was actually called the Float and Live action. And it's about lying on your back with your arms open wide. That's what Freya has reminded me of, and it's reminded me that God welcomes all of us, whoever we are, whatever our circumstances. And look at that in a moment's reflection, what again we can learn from young people. And when we're away from this session, take a few moments just to look in that mirror, just to reflect on some of these words. Maybe it's a word or a phrase, like it was for me in the moment here, that resonates with you. Now, we've heard of 3 voices, all connected with St David's College in some way. From Candice, from Becky, and from Freya. And I've often heard it spoken that we don't hear enough of women's voices in the church, and also that we don't hear enough of young people. So I commend this session to you, and not just these 3 young women, but there's a 4th person from St David's College that has contributed to the Living Faith, happened to be our daughter in the first session. And if you haven't seen any of the other sessions, you can access them on YouTube by typing in the 3 Churches in Cardiff YouTube channel. And if you go to the videos option on YouTube, then you will actually pick up the last 4 sessions, as well as today, and an introductory session. Now, in summary, the 3 voices that we've heard today are very powerful, insightful, and thought-provoking. And this connection with St David's College When I looked into it a little bit further, I didn't realise that St David's Catholic Sixth Form College is the only Catholic Sixth Form college in Wales. However, two things. Firstly, it welcomes anyone of any faith. Secondly, the way it teaches spiritual reflection is to be open and appreciate all faiths, to address virtues, to discuss contemporary global issues and personalities. A far cry from my religious education, which was very rigid and very formulaic. And thank you to all those at St David's, not just present here today, but, including one or two of the teachers, but those behind the scenes that have helped us bring this to you today. And I'd like to leave you with a prayer from the spiritual director, Mike Horgan. Mike didn't produce this prayer specially for today. He produced it for another purpose, but I think it resonates with the themes of today. So I'm just going to share this short prayer with you before we come to the close of the session. Lord, lead us from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead us from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, and our universe. I'll say that again. Let peace fill our hearts, our world, and our universe. Let us dream together, pray together, and work together to build one world of peace and justice for all. Amen. Just to close, and before I hand over to Father in due course for Mass, at the top of this session I said that living faith was for all, not just for those of faith, but those of any faith, those without faith, and those of a fragile disposition. You may not believe in God. You may have times, and don't we all, where we don't believe in God at different moments in our lives. But don't worry, because I heard someone say the other day that God always believes in you and me. And if you like, let's take a cue from Becky. He does that day by day. So on that note, take care. May God bless you and keep you until our final session for this year of Living Faith on June the 26th. And rather than have some music to finish on this occasion, I just would like you to have a few moments to yourself just to reflect on anything that you've heard today, anything that stirred you, a word or a phrase. And if nothing comes to mind, then at least give thanks to our Lord for the young people that have contributed today to bring his message to all of us. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr.